bathroom or go use the telephone or get a drink of water or something, they would jump up and follow us. Every time we went to jump up, they were on our heels. And it was like, you know, it was kind of embarrassing, and it hurt my feelings, really, it did. So I felt unwanted, really.
And people don't knock, okay, they just feel it's their church and they could walk in at any time. And it's hard because I have my wife, I have my kid.
At least knock and say, may I come in? You know, just give the people the chance to like have their space. I mean, you know it's their church, but you're there for a week. So I mean, it's like it's your house for a week.
My tendency is not to go try to intrude just because I'm there as a host for 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever it is. I really try to be responsive to the need and give them their space.
And those that come because they truly want to be there, you'll find they don't push. You know, they do have respect for you. They show you respect. If you need something, before you can even ask, they'll ask you, do you need? It's like they know the boundaries, you know, and those people you'll find, excuse me, I'm saying it, I'm labeling them, those people. You'll find that they, you know, you get close to them.
Any response to that part?
That's an interesting one because, you know, our general tendency is to help wherever we can. So.
That's why we're here, is to help.
Right.
And I hear a lot of people sharing this is one of the hardest things to find a balance on, because you see a single mother struggling to work with all of her kids and to do, and you want to try to help, and you want to also make them as comfortable as possible while they're here because they have so much other things to work on. So why not, every time they jump up, give them, why not bring it before they even ask, and all those kind of things. And that's the balance that you have to figure out. And some of us have to learn that. Sometimes we have to step back and not always be helping and always doing, because they need to have some of that independence, and they need to have some freedom, like she said. We do want them to do while they're here, because it would, like George said, if you want to be that kind of host and do everything for them, they'll put their feet up and let you do it. But that's not what it's about. And so we have guidelines in place to where they do have to clean at the church. They do have to help with cleaning up after dinner and keeping the rooms clean and that kind of thing. So they do have some responsibilities there. They also have responsibilities at the day center to clean.
Are dinners usually buffet style, where they go up and
Yes,
get a place for them and their children?
That normally works best, where you just put it out and they can come and go and get what they want and that kind of thing. If you want to do it more family style, you certainly can do that, where you have pots of each thing at the table and you pass it around. You're welcome to do that too. But most churches do a buffet and they can come and go, get what they need that way.
And then the people that prepare the meal, I know it's up to them whether or not they want to be the ones to sit and have the meal with the families, or do the families kind of go on their own, or?
I'm not sure. I think you're asking two questions. I'm not
Okay.
sure. The one I think you're asking is, some churches have 2 different volunteers to take their dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And they do their sign-ups that way and recruit that way. So you would decide if you're going to do it that way. And so some churches will have some people that just provide the food. They cook it and bring it and drop it off. They don't stay.
Okay.
And then they have other people that come from 5 to 7 and are there when the families are there and serve them and help clean it up. And in some churches, the same host does all that. It's easier to have one person or one group do all that. But if your church has an abundance of volunteers that you can't use them all, you certainly don't want to turn them away. And a lot of times older adults will cook your food and bring and drop it off, but they don't want to stay out late or have to worry about driving back in the dark. And so a lot of times it's some of the elderly that will fix the meal and bring it, but they don't want to stay, which is fine.
Okay, because I mean, that's kind of the way we've set it up. The people have said they'll bring the meals,
so that's
and then
fine.
others are coming.
But if you find that you're struggling trying to cover meals, then you may want to go back to just one group or family does all of it, then you don't have to have twice, because you have to have twice as many volunteers that way.
Mm-hmm.
So if you got them, great.
I think if the people at fellowship eat there too, it really helps make you feel like you're friends among them than if you stand around and watch them eat.
Right, that's a good point.
That helps too.
Yeah.
Do we have the time slots right? I mean, should it be 5 to 7, 7 to 9? I mean, just from not doing it before, it seems like our time
You can
slot
really
is
do
off.
it. You can really do it any way you want to.
6 and.
Most churches do 5 to 7, 7 to 9, and then 9 till overnight, but you could really, you could play
Yeah,
with that,
those are
move
just
it
kind of
around.
placeholders.
Yeah, they
So
sound
we'll
like
have
that
to
would
see
be
whatever
better.
works.
Some churches that are struggling a little with volunteers will just have 2. They'll have like 5 to 8, and then 8 to overnight. They'll just have 2. So again, it really depends on if you have a lot of folks, use them as, I mean,
Yeah,
you
that's
can even
what
break
we
it
did.
up more than that if you want, if you have enough folks, but.
Then I was, sorry. I was at a church, they have like a chore list for each day, and they'll have the guests sign up
They
for
don't pick and choose what they want to do.
what to do, and that includes the children.
Right.
You know, they can, it's, you know, older ones can have more of
That's a
a
good point.
chore, but that gets everybody involved, and then they know what to expect, and, you know, who, if something didn't get done, you know, who it was.
Right.
Who was
And the
supposed
best
to
time to do
it.
that is at your orientation on Sunday night when they first get here.
Mhm.
And there's a form for that in the host book
Okay.
with the days, and they can sign up.
Is there ever any animosity between the families? Like one family to another family, because you're
Yes,
hosting
because again, we're
4
talking about
families.
humans.
No, I know, but I mean.
So, they don't
Because, I mean,
get,
these
they don't get
people-
to choose who's in the program with them. They don't get
Right.
to choose who
But they're
treats them.
spending almost 90 days.
They're spending a lot of
with
time
each other.
together, and sometimes they get along and sometimes they don't. I mean, we've never had anything get out of control where, you know, somebody's beating each other up, but we have had families that have been at each other, that didn't like each other, and we've had to say, you don't have to like each other, but you gotta make the best of the situation. And then we've had others where single mothers leave and they're like sisters.
Mhm.
They still see each other on a regular basis. I mean, they claim that they're sisters. I mean, we've had some really strong bonds made. But again, you don't control who's in the program with you, so there may be differences in how they view the world, or religion, or politics, or whatever makes people angry. I don't know. And so, or the way people, one of the things is the way people parent their children can sometimes be that. You're too harsh for your child, or you're not, you need to control your kids, I'm trying to control my kids, you're letting your kids do whatever. I mean, there's those kind of things, so.
I have a question. Suppose during those hours, 2-3 hours, meeting together during fellowship, what if the volunteer and the guest family, maybe one of the member, click together and build a really strong relationship, a good relationship, but you know we're not supposed to share our personal information, contact information. Will we be able to maintain those kind of relationships afterwards, one way or the other?
Yes, the best way to do that is when they exited the program. Then you would just treat them like a friend, like any other friend. And then that way, if you wanted to keep in contact with them, you could. But again, we just want to make sure that it's what type of relationship it is, that it's just a peer, a friendship, instead of them coming for assistance or asking you for assistance or seeing you as, again, somebody who can provide for their needs. Or, again, we have to look at their situation and what's going to help them and not enable them and things like that. So we certainly encourage friendships. They work best after they're out of the program. But again, it needs to be a peer-type relationship and not a how can I help you, or I'm always coming to you for help kind of thing.
I mean, how do we get in touch with them? Because since we don't exchange the contact information.
Well, you can get a hold of me for that, and sometimes we have, or we can have things where families come back and can fellowship with families. I mean, the best way to do it while they're in the program is if you see them again. Sometimes you do it, sometimes you don't. Depends on how often you host. But I mean, the truth of the matter is, the program is not really set up for that. I mean, friendships do happen and some do grow, but because you're only here for 2-3 hours, and then if you only host once during the week and you don't host again for 3 months, then a whole new group of families is here. So some of the things that we hear from volunteers is, I want more, I want to connect more, I want to do more, I'm not doing enough in 2 hours, all I'm doing is surface talk, how's the weather kind of thing, and I want to do more. So what we've started now is a mentoring program, so if there are people that want to do more, we'll train you to be a mentor, and we'll connect you to a family when they leave the program for a year, and you'll meet with them, well, you don't have to meet with them once a week, but you have to have contact with them at least once a week. So if that's something you want to do, then we can connect you, and if you have a connection with a family that's already there and you see it beginning to build and you think this is going to be a good thing and you're willing to be a mentor, That's the kind of mentors we want, somebody where there's already a relationship and a connection. Then if you're willing to be a mentor, then we can train you, and then you can be a mentor for that family for a year. And then our real hope is after you've done that for a year, there will be a real friendship that will just last for years because you've had the time to really cultivate it that you don't really have in the program.
And just a quick
Okay.
logistical question.
Okay.
If the people that are coming to for fellowship, and if they're going to share that meal, then do I need to tell the people preparing the meal to prepare that that much extra?
Yes.
Kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why if you
There'll
have,
be more than enough.
that's why if you have
Usually
one,
when people bring food, they bring more
Yeah.
than
Enough for
enough.
that.
that's why if you have the same person doing it, then they know to bring for who they're bringing with them. So, yeah, they'll need to bring a little extra, but you're right, there's always more food. And most of our families complain they gain weight during the program. So we've only had one person the whole time here that lost weight in 6 years, so. It's good eating. I don't know that it's always helped, but it's good eating, so.
I have 2 children, ages 6 and 11. And there's a lot of them that will just up and take the kids and totally away from me in a sense of speaking without asking. Maybe they want to play outside and I may not want them to play, and they'll say, well, it's okay, you know, more or less. And they contradict what I be telling the kids at times. I'm quite sure they don't mean to.
You know, it's like parents are teaching their kids one way, and then the host is coming along and teaching them that it's okay to go out of what Mommy has taught you.
For instance, I may tell Antoine, you can't go out today because he does suffer with asthma, and then one of them make it sound, well, we're only going to play such and such, knowing that he do want to do this, and it's harder for me to really say no to him.
This is a child. They'll tell you yes because they want to do it, but you don't know what the parent has planned for them.
Maybe you're standing next to a person in the supermarket and she has a lovely baby and you want to say something to the child. Well, you talk to the mother first. You always go through the parents first, whoever it is, whether it's father or mother.
People should learn to ask you first. Well, gee, can I give them this? Can I give them that? They don't seem to do it.
What they want to do is always want to, you know, can I change your diaper for you? I'm going to give her a bath for you. You know, I usually put her to bed around 7 o'clock. Well, isn't that kind of early to put her to bed? Or, you know, she's coughing, you want me to get you some cough medicine? Or, you know, just people just being too overly helpful. And, you know, I'm not handicapped. I can do most of it myself, you know.
A baby is just so appealing, or a young mother struggling to feed a small child. Every mother who's ever fought to get, you know, string beans down as opposed to bananas or peaches is going to think that they've got an ideal way to do it.
And I'll start with the parent first. And normally the parent will introduce the child. It's like, let it come from them and never go in thinking like, you know, I'm going to take charge of this. This is my 4 hours, like a drill sergeant.
If there's something that looks like maybe there's a way I can help, maybe could I go help wash them up for dinner, or get involved or dialogue with them about something they're doing with their playing or homework. I'll try to make sure that I've talked to the parent first and that there is a level of comfort. Sometimes I think it can be unspoken.
And believe me, it's a relief to me also because it it gives me a chance to do, maybe I want to read or just stretch out or whatever, you know, and like a lot of them may want to help with the homework, which is good because I don't know it all, mainly when it comes to math and stuff.
It's just difficult to remember to say sometimes, can I help you? Or would you like me to take the baby so you can have your dinner? Or I'm going to go outside for a walk. Do you think the little one would like to come? Or how would you feel if we sat down and crayoned or whatever? It's the asking part, and that's probably the hardest area to remember.
We want to know what caused the family to be in this situation. That's natural. But if you can only imagine hearing those questions over and over and over, how that can be training on a person, on a family. And so what you have to tell yourself in preparation for coming here is I really don't need to know why the people are here. I need to trust Family Promise staff that if they are here, they are in need and it's legit. And I'm just coming to offer hospitality, and it doesn't matter why they're here, but I know they're in need, and what I'm doing is going to help. So if you look at it that way, then it makes it a whole lot easier. Now, sometimes they may share lots of things with you, and I think I might get back to Haley's question. where there was, sometimes they may be overly wanting to share. And we have, again, we're dealing with all kinds of different personalities, all kinds of different personalities in here tonight. There's all kinds of different personalities when you host of our families that we're serving. Some are very introverted and will say very little to you. Sometimes they may even go to their room and not want to speak a lot. That's not because they don't care, they're not appreciative, it's because that's their personality and they're introverted. Some are extroverted and want to stand on the table and be the center of attention, and if you let them, they will, and they want to play every game under the sun, they want to know all about you, and they want you to know all about them. And that's just the way they are. And we all come in contact with people like that every day. So it's just understanding that and what they're talking about and what they're doing. If there's ever a time where you feel like they're sharing too much or you're becoming uncomfortable, then you just need to tell them that. Just say, I don't feel comfortable with this conversation, or we need to talk about something else, or whatever. I mean, they'll be understanding. A lot of times, they'll give you clues about what's appropriate as far as conversation, and you give them clues by your nonverbals, or whatever it happens to be, leaning in, all those kind of things. You tell them, this is appropriate, this isn't appropriate, or whatever. A lot of times I get questions like, hey buddy, we're in the South. I'm going to say, how was your day? How's it going? What's up? I'm going to say those kind of things. And some of that is cultural, but you just have to understand, again, when I hear that over and over and over, it's like an attack on them. Was I successful today or not? And so a lot of times people after training will say, well, I just can't say anything. I'll just have to be quiet all the time. Well, that's not the case. One thing that you can always talk about is children. And if you have children, you can always talk about children and say, these are the crazy things my kids do, and what your kids do, and I remember when this guy stuck up their nose and this happened. I mean, you can always talk about, and people always want to talk about their children. And so that's, if you can't think of anything else to say, ask about their children or talk about your children, and it'll get them, it's like an instant connection. But you can also talk about other things, sporting events, and what they like to do, and places they like to go, without getting into where were you from and how, and start to bring up things where it may be uncomfortable because they had a really bad situation with a parent or something like that. There are ways you can get into it to get it started. And like they've already said on the video, they give you clues of what's appropriate, and they'll help you a lot of times with that, those boundaries, and know what to do and what's appropriate. Any other questions?
Yeah, I could see someone signing up for a fellowship from 7 to 9, and then a family that may not want to talk.
Yep.
Or be in the room. How is that typically
handled? That's a good point, a good thing to talk about. The title could be a little misleading because I don't really know what else you would call it. It's just the best term we found. But you're right, and it's something that we do like to bring up in training because there may be a situation where they don't want to talk, and you may not be fellowshipping. And especially on the weekend when they're doing a lot of other things, washing clothes, taking baths, whatever, doing homework. If they're at the day center and they're using the computer or washing clothes, you may be sitting there and reading a book or just hanging out and may not be interacting with them. So as the volunteer, you don't need to feel like if I come there, I have to be constantly interacting with the families. Your purpose as a volunteer is to give them the safe haven that a lot of our families talk about, a safe place where they feel comfortable putting their lives back together. And that may involve sometimes a lot of interaction, and sometimes it may not involve any. You may be there during fellowship time, and the one group might be bathing, one might be have a sick child, and there may not be anybody out. They may all be in their rooms. So you just need to already have the expectation that it's not about me, I'm not going for me, or pat on the back or whatever to feel good. But the other part of it is, and what I think you're probably talking about, is I want to make sure that I'm doing what I need to be doing to help. And so if there's no fellowship to do, you're just there being present so that they have a safe place to be, because there always has to be a volunteer there. And if they need anything, you're there. Sometimes you're fellowshipping and sometimes you're not. So we encourage you to take a book, especially if you're at the day center on Sunday and stuff. Take a book to read. The internet's there. If you surf the internet, you have that access at the day center. But just, be aware. Sometimes, and again, it depends on who's in the program. You may have some that are very introverted and will follow you around. You're in the kitchen and they're following you. Hey, I'm not done talking to you. And then you have others where they may not want to talk at all. So again, you have to be flexible. So.
And so if, like, a family has signed up for fellowship and they bring their younger children, and then but there doesn't seem like interaction, then they would just play a board game with their family, or they would just still be there.
And again, you've got the family room there with some kids' toys. You've got the DVD. You can watch DVD with your kids. If the other kids want to come in and watch, that's fine. But you don't have to go and try to find them. I'm supposed to be fellowship. Come out here and fellowship. Hello, it's fellowship time. You don't have to do that. Yeah, so. Good.
And just one last thing, because it is the day after Christmas that we'll have it, I mean, I think the sensitivities will probably be higher because, I mean, they're homeless at that time of, I mean, I know it's hard at any time, but that they have just had a Christmas wherever, and then I'm sure that the church before us will, you know, have their adopted family kind of thing, and that kind of thing, but so that sensitivity is there.
You have some that automatically will judge you because of the word homeless, you know, and they don't know your situation.
People have a lot of stereotypes about homeless people, and that's what it's all about, breaking down the stereotypes of homeless people. You know, we all haven't slept on the streets, and we all haven't stolen for our meals, and a lot of things like that.
They expect people who are kind of poor looking, and here they come, and maybe they wear a nicer trouser than you. And they're very upset, and they say, what am I doing here? Why should I help these people? They look much nicer than I do. Maybe they have not saved enough money and spent their money on things where I don't spend, so I have a home and they don't. And this is a big issue. It's been discussed in the congregation, and we hope we have overcome these prejudices, but it does exist.
You know that they're carrying a lot of baggage, and I mean, there are a lot of stress and a lot of concern. And some of them are just burned out mentally in terms of where they're going. They don't know what's going to happen to them.
They're fighting back at everybody and everything because all day they have been looking for apartments, being turned down, having their hopes built up, going to see some and then get there and the landlord don't let them have it, dealing with their job if they're working, you know, child care. Life still goes on. They just don't have a place to live.
Then you got those that say, well, how did it go? You said, well, I don't know. And the first thing they said, well, did you try? Of course I tried, you know, but it don't hurt to give suggestions, but it's the way you say it, you know.
You're going to be a very ineffective volunteer if you come into the situation and do anything which conveys, however subtly, to a guest that you've made some sort of judgment about them as an individual, about their lifestyle, about the circumstances that brought them there.
You know, instead of coming in and being judgmental, they have to ask themselves, well, what if the circumstances change on me? You know, I may be in their shoes.
In this society, things are going on that all of us are either one paycheck or two paychecks away from homeless when you really think about it.
I think you have to get rid of the idea. These are destitute people in the street. I think these are poor people who have no roof over their head, and we have to help them. And they're people like me and you.
I'm very much away from the stereotype of what homelessness is after being homeless myself.
I don't want to make a career out of this. You know, I just want to go, have a place to sleep at night, have a place to take a shower, you know, have some decent accommodations, and then work on my way of getting out.
When you hear about the ones who are going back to high school to get their high school equivalency, or someone who's working or looking for a job or taking a training program, you really begin to understand that these people are working very hard to help themselves. So maybe just by the opportunity of spending some time, you're able to begin to realize that an instant judgment really isn't going to apply to these people, because they're much more individualistic than a labeled homeless person might be.
This is a typical Lawrence High School classroom. It's your house for a week, and they do look at it as their place for the week. So we tell all the volunteers, you don't just enter, you knock on the door, you wait till they come. If I'm at the church bringing a family in or whatever, I don't just walk in somebody's room. If a repairman needs to go in and repair something, we like to let the families know ahead of time that, hey, on Thursday there's going to be somebody come in and change a filter or whatever, so they know that somebody's been in their room, because that is really important. We want to make sure that we're responding to their need for privacy and dignity. Questions about that?
Do we have locks on those doors?
Are there locks?
That's a big question mark.
Yeah, because we have had churches that put locks on them, because that way families feel really more safe when they can leave, even though their stuff's locked up.
The rooms all through the lock.
Okay, so is there a master key or
Depends on whether you want to lock them or
something?
not.
You can't look at it.
Yeah, 'cause if you can, it's good to do that.
Yeah.
You've got to cover those holes though.
Oh, yeah, the window. Yeah.
Yep. We need something to cover those.
They just really, they need to calm down and don't be so, excited about, solving one's life's problems. They can't do it all.
Not everybody's comfortable just going in and dealing with other people, period. So here's now a situation they've probably never been in. What can I do and make sure I do it well? And temptation is to get all maybe tight. And so again, just step back and say, we're here providing hospitality.
So I think just walking through the door and being open enough to deal with whatever configuration of people are going to be with you that evening, that morning, or whatever, is really the key to being successful as a volunteer.
Just act normal. Don't be so uptight. Oh my God, what should I say? It's normal. That's all.
I have really grown to love a lot of these people, and it's like a part of my family. I treat them as such, and they sure treat me like that. I just thank God for the program.
We made this videotape to help volunteers understand and avoid the problems that sometimes can get in the way of good relationships. The guests and volunteers spoke very frankly and very directly to these problem areas. But I want to emphasize that we asked the participants to be very honest with us, and that many responded only after much prodding. We don't want anyone to leave with the impression that the guests are not grateful for the network, or that long-lasting and mutually satisfying relationships do not grow from the program. Most guests go on at great length about how much the network means to them, and especially how much volunteers care. We hope that this tape has given you more of a sense of what the network is about, and it has provided you with some fresh insights that you can take with you when you volunteer.
The kids cannot be where the parents are not. So how can, we be playing with the children, maybe which would be in the room next door, and this would be somebody's room, and the parent being here and us in there. I mean, is that okay?
Well, it really has a lot to do with the age of the child. I mean, if it's a 14 or 15-year-old, the child should be able to be okay in the other room. If it's a 2-year-old or 18-month-old, that's a different story. So really it depends on the age of the child, but the parent, if it's a small child, the parent should be in that area or close by to that area.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there should never be a time where the child is on the other end of the church and they're here, or they're asleep in their room and their child is up for hours, or they feed their child and they go to their room and you don't see them for the rest of the night. That's not what's supposed to happen.
Okay.
As far as, if you're playing there and there's several parents there, or there are other parents in the program there, and they want to say, well, you can oversee my kids or whatever, the other parents in the program, that's okay. I mean, there's no need to have every single parent in the room watching every child. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's some flexibility there. But what we want to try to keep from happening is parents just not supervising their children at all. And one of the reasons why this is sticky is because what happens, and we tell all our parents this. Obviously, it's their responsibility to supervise their children, but here's what happens. If they go in their room after dinner and leave their kid up in the room, a 2-year-old with you, there's going to come a time where the child needs to be parented. They're going to whack somebody with a toy, or they're going to get a lollipop in their mouth and start running up and down, or they're running with scissors or something. They're doing something where they need to be parented. And so at that point, you have to parent them. Doesn't matter if you have the same parenting skills, if you've been a parent for 100 years, doesn't matter if you agree, you have to parent them, because now they're either doing something that's unsafe or it needs to be addressed. So the parent of this child, do they want you parenting their child? Most don't want somebody else parenting their child. They have their own. You heard them talking about go against what I'm teaching them. But also, you shouldn't have the responsibility to have to do that. That's not your child. And you're going to parent different than this mother or this father or whatever. So that's the bigger issue. It's not, there is some liability involved, but the bigger issue is about parenting. I don't want to leave my kid unattended, for 2 hours to somebody else, because I don't know how they're going to parent them. There's going to come a time where they have to be parented. It's just children are children. So that's the bigger issue. And the asking is a big deal because you don't know what the parents have planned. Like she said, you don't know if they have asthma, you don't know the situation. So, if you want to take them to do something special or whatever, just make sure that you've talked about that. Or if you're gonna give them something, if you've got candy to share, or your kids have candy to share, or your kids wanna go over there and color or whatever, just make sure you've talked to the parents. Okay. Anything else on that? We finally had one issue where somebody felt like a parent in the program was harsh in disciplining their child. And so if you ever feel like a parent has overstepped the bounds in the way that they're disciplining their child, if it's verbally or if you think it's physical, then you need to report that right away to your coordinator, and your coordinator needs to report that to me right away because we're mandatory reporters. So if you feel like there's a child being abused, we have to report that. So there's only been one time in 6 years we've had to report something. That doesn't happen very often, but if it does, we need to report that.
What's our responsibility as hosts if we see someone in our own congregation who tends to be insensitive?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. What is it?
I mean, you said we can't really reprimand the families, but do we talk to those folks, or?
Oh, you mean, I'm not
in
sure.
our own,
If a host volunteer.
Does something in the
Instead
program
of
with the
reminding
child?
Or just even just in general, you mean, being insensitive?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I've never had anybody ask that. I mean, how would you handle that normally? I mean, I know we have specific rules here, but everywhere you go, there's specific rules and boundaries and things that are set up by the community. I mean, if you're at a potluck dinner here or something and somebody gets out of line, how do you deal with it? Does the priest slap them in the head, or what? I mean, how do you normally
I don't know
deal
what
with
we could do, I mean.
Most times it just gets ignored.
Somebody says something, I think. Or redirect it.
My suggestion is if you're a volunteer and you're there and you see a volunteer doing something inappropriate, if it's like going against some of these things, they're going in the rooms, or they're asking lots of questions, or they're doing things that are damaging the program or not offering good hospitality, I would talk to the coordinator. And then let the coordinator decide how they want to handle that. Now, I can be involved if I need to be. The reason why I want to be the coordinator is because they typically at least know something know their volunteers better than I do. We've talked about this and Columbia Saturday on our training for coordinators. If you find somebody that is not a good fit, you can't fire a volunteer. You can call it firing, but you're really not firing them. Whatever you want to call it, you can't fire a volunteer. So the best thing to do is to get somebody in leadership involved, be it the coordinator, maybe the priest, or somebody else that's respected, to say, we don't feel like this is a good fit for you to come and volunteer with the families, and here's the reasons. But you still want to value their service, and you still want them to serve. You don't want to squash that or kill that or whatever. So what I suggest you do is redirect them, either within the ministry or to another ministry. So maybe they could come on setup because they're not involved, they're not in contacting with the families. And they could set up all, let them lift the heavy stuff. Let them do that, or let them write thank you notes, or let them collect all the donations you need, or let them clean the toilets and do the laundry afterwards. I mean, there's lots of things that have to be done that they don't have to interact with the families. And you may have people that come volunteer who you're looking at them going, they don't need to volunteer with the families, they don't need to be with the families. So give them suggest some of those jobs so that they can be doing those things, and then you can kind of sidestep those problems before they ever happen. But then if it's still not working, then, like I said, somebody in leadership, the priest or whoever, can say, let's volunteer over at this ministry. Maybe family promises aren't a good fit for you, but we want you to volunteer, we want you to live out your commitment to serve and all that. So that's what I would suggest. And certainly if you need my input on that, I can be involved. But it makes more sense for somebody who's in leadership in the community to be involved in that. And what I always tell all of my coordinators, you never talk about any issue with a volunteer by yourself. There's always somebody else there. So it's never he said, she said, or it's them against me, or it's a personality issue. There's always a witness there. And of course, you're coming in a loving manner, and it's all for the good of the program and good for our service and honoring God, all those things.
Would we be told in advance who our coordinators are?
Yes, your coordinator is sitting behind you.
And then my co-coordinator is over there.
Okay, and there's Christy. So we failed to say that. I just assumed everybody knew that Kalinda is the coordinator and Chrissy is the.
And John is my co-coordinator.
Right, Coco. We have a lot of Cocos. Yeah. Okay. There's 2 more sections. We'll finish real quick. veteran, and I think he was in the Army. I can't remember if he was a sergeant or a major or what, but he was the overnight person. So he came in and he had the job of getting everybody in bed. It was not a good fit. When it was time for lights out, it was time for lights out, and that meant lights out. And so he went and cut the lights out. They're watching the movie, he unplugs the TV. Not good. And so it happened twice, and we had to, I didn't have to go, but the coordinator said, this is not working. We need to use you somewhere else. So I think she moved into setup or something else, because he really believed in the program. Just that rule of getting, you told me they need to be, you said lights out. And so we had to move him to do something else, and now it's working. I think he's helping with set up, and boy, they do set up, and they get it right. Let's get back to judging. Am I the only one that struggles with judging? I mean, I've been doing this now almost 6 years, and I still struggle with it. There's so many different things that we judge about all the time, all day long. Where to start? They have a nicer looking trouser than you. Maybe they have very nice clothing. Does that mean they're not homeless or they're not in need? Again, we take care of all of their needs. Some of our people buy clothes. Some people give gift cards. Some bring brand new clothing. You can get really nice clothes at Goodwill and other places. If families come in without clothes, we get them clothing. And so sometimes it's nice, if not nice, maybe nicer than what you have. That doesn't mean that they're not in need. They have a cell phone. Maybe years ago that meant that you were not in need. But now again, with the price of them and then needing to be able to be reachable for a job and for child care, if they have a cell phone, that doesn't mean that they're not in need. We probably paid for it, or Grandma in New York paid for it so she can keep in contact with her grandson. Again, you don't know the situation, you don't know where the clothes came from, you don't know where the phone came from. I like to tell the story on my wife. She doesn't like it so much, but I like to tell it because it's so good. We went one night as a family and ate with the families for a Sunday night meal, and when we got back in the car, she said, there's just something I really don't understand. I said, what is it? She said, all the mothers tonight sitting at the table with us had manicures and pedicures, fresh nail. How can they afford that? I can't afford it. I'd love to do that. We're not homeless. I said, have you been to training? What she didn't realize is that one of our volunteers who does that for a living came actually Saturday the day before and did that for all the mothers for free so that they could feel special and normal. So again, you don't know the situation. Just because they have the expensive nails doesn't mean that they paid for it. Another thing is automobiles. If they drive up in a $12,000 automobile, are you offended? Are you judging them? Maybe you are. We have people donate automobiles to our organization. We had a gentleman 3 years ago who was a builder when you could make a lot of money at building. And he was changing out his vehicle for his work, and he said, I prayed to God, and God told me to give you the car. Okay, what is it? It's an Eddie Bauer edition of the Expedition, Ford, leather, power, everything. How old is it? 3 years old. It's worth $13,000. We gave it to a family. We don't sell cars. If we get a car, we give it directly to the family. That's a more expensive car than I drive. But I'm not offended by that because I know the situation that it came from. So again, judging is when you're making a judgment on somebody before you know the whole situation. So again, it's important not to judge. Let me say one more quick thing on judging about smoking. If you tend to judge people that smoke or have something against people that smoke or whatever, you need to be aware that if a family comes in and they smoke, we don't make them stop smoking while they're with us. If they want to continue to smoke, then we have a smoking area at each church, so you'll need to have one if you don't have one already. Most churches do have one somewhere. And if they want to do that, then we allow them to do that. We don't pay for cigarettes, but if they do want to do that, then we don't keep that from them because that's just adding more stress to an already stressful situation. However, if they say, I want to stop smoking, then we'll bend over backwards, we'll do patches, get them to doctors, whatever it takes to help them stop smoking. But we're not going to say you can't smoke because what would happen is they would do it anyway and you'd smoke in the bathrooms and other places. So we realize that and just want to let you know that if that is something that you have an issue with, just to be aware of it. Okay?
How does that work at night? Aren't the doors locked at night?
Yes, they need to be.
Is outside. They have to have
they need to put something in the door, or somebody will have to let them back in, or it can't be inside. And there's a local ordinance that says it has to be at least 20 feet from an entrance. So it can't be right at the door. So it has to be at least 20 feet from an entrance.
But they're not be undercover on a rainy night.
Yeah, do y'all have one? Does anybody know? Do you have one?
Smoking area?
I would think under the
A
cover.
lot of times just a flower pot, a metal flower pot or concrete urn with sand in it or gravel is a good one. And you can put it